February 1st, 2012. A date that will forever be etched into the history of Egyptian football. It might not mean much to many people around the world, but in Egypt, everyone remembers it. It seemed like just another regular football match. The country's two biggest rivals, Al Masry and Al Ahly, faced off once again. The match began like any other, but ended in disaster. 74 people died and over 500 were injured. Behind the tragedy were deep political tensions. A year earlier, the military had seized control of the government, sparking nationwide protests. One of the most active resistance groups were Al Ahly's ultras. When the two teams met again on the field, authorities knew tensions were about to explode, but they did nothing to stop it. In fact, they opened the stadium gates while locking the exits for Al Ahly's fans. It was a brutal act of retaliation against protesters. Some people were attacked, others thrown from the stands, but most were crushed in the panic. It became the darkest day in Egyptian football. A month later, the National League was suspended. It took 2 years to play a full season again, and 4 years before fans were allowed back into stadiums. Egypt's best players either fled the country or retired. The national team fell into crisis. They couldn't even qualify for the African Cup of Nations. Football and the country with it were in a hopeless place. They needed someone to give people hope again, and no one could have guessed that this person was playing for bottom-tier club El Mokholoun. That person was Mohamed Salah. Salah was born in the town of Nagrig, where as a child he played football on the streets with other local kids. El Mokholoun discovered him by accident while scouting other players. But Salah's talent and speed stunned them, and they offered him a contract. At just 14 years old, Salah joined the club, sacrificing everything to attend training. He traveled for hours each day from his village to Cairo at the cost of his education. As he later recalled, "For 5 days a week, over 3 or 4 years, I would go to school at 7 in the morning and leave by 9. I'd reach training by 2 p.m. and wouldn't get home until 10 at night. Basically, all I did was eat, sleep, train, and then repeat it all the next day." Salah started out playing as a left back, but because of his speed and technical skills, coaches pushed him forward into attacking positions. By the age of 15, he was training with the first team, and not long after, he made his debut in Egypt's top division. Salah quickly became a standout player. He was called up to the Olympic team, and several top Egyptian clubs wanted to sign him. But then the stadium tragedy struck, and professional football in Egypt came to a standstill. Teammates who could left the country. For Salah, his only remaining shot was through the Olympic team. In 2012, Egypt's U23 team played a friendly match against Swiss club FC Basel. Salah started on the bench, but once he came on, he scored 2 goals, and Egypt won 4-3. The president of Basel later said, "I'll never forget that day. I had never seen such a fast player in my life." They invited Salah for a trial and soon offered him a contract. This was the opportunity he had dreamed of since childhood. He only played 2 seasons in the Swiss top flight, but that was enough to make a name for himself in Europe. FC Basel made a surprise run to the Europa League semi-finals, where they were eventually stopped by Chelsea. Salah played a key role in that journey, scoring against both Tottenham and Chelsea. Meanwhile, he became a key player for the national team. And because the domestic league in Egypt was still suspended, fans followed the team's World Cup qualifiers with intense hope. Egypt hadn't qualified since 1990. But this time, they were close. They won their qualifying group, with Salah leading the scoring charts. One final game stood between them and qualification, and the nation started to believe again. But Ghana crushed those dreams, defeating Egypt 6-1. From that moment, all hope was pinned on one man, Mohamed Salah. He was now playing Champions League football with Basel and faced Chelsea again, now coached by Mourinho. After watching Salah play, Mourinho made him a top transfer target. So did several Premier League clubs. Salah nearly joined Liverpool. But a phone call from Mourinho changed everything. He chose Chelsea instead. Instead of rising, his career stalled. Chelsea was full of global stars. Salah spent most of his time on the bench. And when he did get a chance, he struggled. The press attacked him, and even Mourinho was openly critical. Meanwhile, Egypt once again failed to qualify for the Africa Cup of Nations. I felt like my dream was slipping away, and I couldn't let that happen. I had two choices: accept that I'd always be a bench warmer or prove them all wrong. So I decided to leave. He was loaned to Fiorentina, where he chose the number 74 shirt, in memory of the victims of the stadium tragedy. There he found his form again. He scored against Juventus and Inter, became a starter, and Roma took notice. Salah joined Roma and entered the best form of his life. In 2 seasons, he helped the team to a Serie A runner-up finish and caught Europe's attention once again. He also led Egypt back to the Africa Cup of Nations, guiding them all the way to the final. Though they finished second, the result gave the nation renewed hope. Salah had put Egypt back on the football map. In 2017, he was voted African Player of the Year. And then came the offer of his life from Liverpool. Salah had a second chance to prove himself in the Premier League, the very league that once gave up on him. This time, he took it. He scored goals, provided assists, and then came the most important moment of his entire career. October 2017. Egypt was 1 win away from qualifying for the World Cup. In the 63rd minute against Congo, Salah scored. The streets of Egypt exploded with joy, but it didn't last. In the 87th minute, Congo equalized. Salah recalled, "I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't accept it. I collapsed to the ground, but I knew my teammates couldn't see me like that. I pulled myself together and stood up, but inside, I was in pieces. It was one of the hardest moments of my life." Then came the 93rd minute. An Egyptian player was brought down in the box. The referee pointed to the spot. The staff ran onto the pitch in celebration. The commentator cried tears of joy and thanked Allah. And in the middle of it all, one man stood motionless. The man who had prepared for this moment his whole life, Mohamed Salah. He stepped up and scored. The streets of Egypt erupted in celebration. Fans cried tears of joy. After years of protests, military unrest, and political instability, a nation was united again. Perhaps nothing illustrates this better than the 2018 presidential elections, where thousands voted for Salah, despite him not even running. In the end, he finished second in total votes. Egypt didn't make it out of the group stage in the World Cup, but this journey meant everything to Salah and his country. In the match against Russia, he scored Egypt's first World Cup goal in 28 years. And against Saudi Arabia, he added another, Egypt's first open-play World Cup goal since 1934. It was also the first time Egypt ever led in a World Cup match. It was the moment that gave hope to an entire nation, and it was the moment that forever wrote Mohamed Salah's name into the history of Egypt.